Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Let's just give you a rundown for what the week's going to entail, and then we'll get into a little video on today's assignment. So if you're in Delta Math, here's Tuesday's assignment. We're going to focus on this here in a little bit when we're factoring trinomials with an a value that's larger than 1. Wednesday's assignment right down here, it'll have a few of those problems, and then maybe a little higher level of difficulty here. And Thursday's assignment, determine factoring types as well. So that kind of lays out your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as we get started with the week. But what I want to focus on with you this morning are factoring trinomials when a is greater than 1. All right, so let's jump into to an example here. And let's just say, for instance, I had given you a problem, x squared plus 4x. Let's make that a little better plus sign, plus 3. All right, let's say we were asked to factor this. We know that that's a 1x squared, and in order to generate that within our problem, this is automatically the format that we've been going with, because the only way to get a 1x squared is to have 1x times 1x, which is 1x squared. And we know that. What you're going to notice this week is that these problems right down here, notice this is no longer a 1. In this case, that lead coefficient is a 2. And so our approach is going to be slightly different. That's what we'll focus on today. Well, let's go back up here and kind of finish this problem off. Then we looked at factors of 3 that would add together to give me 4. Well, that's kind of nice because the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So that would mean that I could come in here and I could do a plus 3 and a plus 1. And so when I would multiply this together, there's my x squared. There's 1x plus 3x, which is 4x. And then 3 times 1 is 3. So the big key here is if we've satisfied the x squared requirement, and we've satisfied that 3 times 1 is 3, here's kind of our focus. This is 3x, and this is 1x, and so the result of those is 3x plus 1x is that middle term of 4x. And we're going to kind of use that idea today to help us out. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit to give myself a little space. One thing to keep in mind as you're going through the Delta Math, over here, you've got a help video that you can always click on, and then you can show example. So you can show an example problem. So don't forget about those two features as you're working through these assignments. All right, so factor the trinomials. I look at this, my first thought, kind of like it was on that example that we just did up above in red, is how do I get an x squared? Well, in this case, how do I get a 2x squared? Well, the only way to get 2 is if I use a 2 times 1. So my setup here is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go with a 2x and then a 1x. All right, so isn't it true that 2x times 1x gives me 2x squared? That's what we're trying to accomplish. So I've satisfied that. Now, much like this problem, we jump to the end. We said, okay, what are some factors of, up there it was 3, down here we're talking about 15. So factors of 15 could be 1 and 15. 2 doesn't go in, could use a 3 and a 5. 4 doesn't go in, and then back to 5 and 3 again. So here's my possible combinations. And so I have to decide between which of these to use and place in here. So I'm trying to fill in this spot and this spot. And if I can fill those in, that's what I'm trying to accomplish and get this to add together to give me 13. Okay, well, let's just try it out. Let's go with 1 and 15. So let's just say I went with plus 1 and then plus 15. All right, so take a look at this. 2x times x is 2x squared. We've got it. Then 1 times 15 is 15. Got it. So what I need is this middle to be 13. So when I look at this, this is 1x, and 2 times 15 is 30x. So that's going to give me 31x. Is that a 13? No, it is not. So I know that this combination right there is not going to multiply together to give me this trinomial when it's all said and done. Okay, so let's try another option. So let's stick with the same set of factors of the 1 and the 15. Let's just switch spots. All right, so I switched the 15 to this trinomial, and then this one will be x plus 1. All right, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 15 times 1 is 15. So I've satisfied, once again, the first and the last terms. So I'm trying to figure out that middle. This would give me 15x. And 2 times 1 is 2x, which is 17x. Now, was that closer? Was that a better fit? Yes. Is it the exact fit that we need? No, because remember, what I need to have is a positive 13. So what I could say right now is that my factors of 1 and 15 didn't work. Okay, so this one is not going to work either. So now let's try a 3 and a 5. So once again, I'm going to stick with the 2x, and then let's go plus 3 and x plus 5. All right, so let's just kind of walk through this again. 2x times x gives me the 2x squared that I'm looking for. 5 times 3, or 3 times 5 is 15. So I've got the first and the last values. So now what I'm really focused on is what's happening inside. So here's 3 times x, which is a 3x. And then I'm looking at 2 times 5, which is 10x. And what's true about 3x and 10x? That gives me 13x. And that's what I'm looking for. So that means that this combination right here is the factorization that when I multiply it out will give me this trinomial. And while we're looking at this problem, let's just go ahead and try that other combination. So let's say I switched it to a 2x plus 5. And then let's say we had x plus 3. All right, so as I look at these, this would be a 5x. And this pair here is going to give me a 6x. And 5 and 6 is 11x. So I can see that that combination did not provide me with the 13x that I was looking for. All right, so we've already got the answer that we need. So down here it says go ahead and have the factored form. So I'm going to go with 2x plus 3. And then we said it was x plus 5. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and submit that. Say yes. And there we go. It tells me it's correct. I can look down here. And the nice thing about this with the Delta Math is that it shows you those possibilities. So here was the original problem. And then when you look at this part of that example, it shows you here they used 1 and 15. And what did they come up with? Here's the 31x. All right, then they also show 15 and 1, 17x, just like we did. Then they tried 3 and 5. That one was correct. And then you could also see 5 and 3 gave you the 11x, just like we did. So it's very nice because they give you that that possibility where they show all the different sets of factors that multiply then to give you the 15. All right, and then it kind of talks you through a little bit of what we were trying to accomplish. It shows you the solution right down here. So keep that in mind. Use that as a resource if you need to. All right, let's go through one more problem here. So we'll take a look. 2x squared. Okay, so immediately I'm thinking factors of 2 are 2 and 1. So I'm going to go with a 2x and a 1x. And if you just wanted to write it in there as an x, that's fine. That's what I ended up doing on the last problem after we wrote it a couple times. And now I'm thinking factors of 30. All right, so 1 and 30. 2 and 15. 3 and 10. 5? Pretty bad 5. 5 and 6. Ooh, all right. So now we've got 4 different sets. Okay, well, I need it to equal, when I get it set up, I need it to equal 17x. Okay. Also keep in mind, if these signs happen to be, if this was a negative, then that would mean one of these signs could be a negative. The other one would have to be a positive. Remember, for it to be positives, These could both be negative because negative times a negative is positive, but since this is positive and this 17 is also positive, then I'm going with all positive options here. All right, so let's take a look. If I need this to be 17x, immediately I can probably rule out this 1 and a 30 because 30, and if I add anything else to it, if you think about it, is just going to be too much. All right, if I do 30 in this spot, 2 times 30 is 60. If I do 30 here, 30 plus 2 is going to be 32, so that's going to be too much. So I can rule that one out just using some logical reasoning skills there. All right, this next one with the 2 and the 15, okay, if I did 2 and it was a 15 here, 2 times 15 is 30. And then the 2 and the 1 would be 2, so that'd be 32. So that's not going to work out. If I put the 15 here, that would be 15. And then 2 times 2 is 4. So 15 and 4 would be 19. So not quite. So I'm just kind of going through that, talking through that process a little bit. 3 and 10. Okay, so in this case, 3 times 10. So if I had this as the 3, it'd be 3 times 1, which is 3x. I could go 2 times the 10, that's 20, which is going to give me 23. That's going to be a little bit too big. So let's say I went with 10 in this spot. Let's say it was 10 times 1, which is 10, and then I'd have 2 times 3, which is 6. So 10 and 6 is going to give me 16. So that's not quite going to work. All right, let's say 2 and 5. So that's got to be our last combination. So let's just say that I made this a positive 5. Let's say I made this a positive 6. This would give me 5. So there's my 5x. 2 and 6 is going to be 12x. And 5 and 12 is 17x, which is ultimately what I'm trying to get to. Let's say you would have tried 2x, and let's say we had a plus 6, and let's say you would have had a 2, whoops, let me get rid of that. This is supposed to be a 1x, sorry. Let's say we had 1x plus 5. Let's see how that would have impacted things. This would have been 6x, and that would have been a 10x, giving you a total for that middle term to be 16x, but if you remember, it had to be 17, and that is why this combination right here worked. All right, I just kind of did some logical reasoning through this. The 1 and the 30, that was going to be too big. We tried the 2 and the 15, tried the 3 and the 10, and ultimately ended up with that combination of 5 and 6. So then what I'm going to do is go ahead and enter that in. 2x plus 5 and x plus 6. And we'll submit. Yes, I am correct there. And so now what it's going to show me down here, it will show all those combinations, the 1 and 30. So if you want to see that, I know we kind of skipped through it, but click on it here. And then that'll show you. That would have given us a 61. You could try 30 and 1. That gave us 32. 15 and 2, 32. And a 19, so that wasn't going to work. 3 and 10 gave us a 23. 3 and 10 here gave us a 16 when we flipped it. And then here was our correct combination of 5 and 6. And then we showed also 6 and 5, which was just a little bit off. All right, so remember, utilize that as a resource. Remember, you've got the help video. And then remember, up at the top, you can see a show example once you go to the next problem. Hopefully that gives you some help. So use this video, use the help videos, use the tutorials in there to try to do the best you can going through there. Remember, the Delta Maths, you can try them as many times as you need in order to get to that benchmark that we're trying to hit. So make sure you do a nice job taking care of that. Thanks.